All right. Thank you, Dr. Thompson. All right, school board, it's been a long night. Let's go ahead and get started with tonight's business, but it's been a good night celebrating our children and our coaches. And so let's get down to the business of the board. Agenda item number 9, administration and facilities. First up tonight is an item for information entitled Capital Improvements Update. Mr. Franchini.
Yes, I'd like to ask Ms. Myers to come forward to give us an update on capital improvements, and then we'll be followed by an item for action, the Cross High School Renovation Plan, GMP. Ms. Myers.
Thank you. Let's see if I can get this. I think that should work. Good evening, Chairman Murray, Dr. Thompson, members of the board. Tonight I want to give you an update on our capital improvement and minor renovation projects for this year. The primary duty of the facilities department is to complete maintenance and repair work orders that the schools generate. And so for this fiscal year, we've completed and closed out 18,324 work orders so far. In addition to completing work orders, we are also charged with execution of the capital improvements and minor renovation projects. There are various ways we accomplish this work. Some of the projects are completed by our skilled craftsmen. Some of the projects are a combination of our skilled craftsmen and supporting subcontractors. And some of the projects we complete by contractors. As you will see in the presentation, there is quite a variety of work which needs to be accomplished. Well, all must be implemented in a way that meets procurement code as well as OSF, State Department's position. Let me take a moment and remind you that the focus for this year's project is security. Dr. Thompson and Mr. Franchini spearheaded security assessments at each school, and the result of these assessments, projects were identified which would improve the security for our district. So I'll start with these projects. First one up there on the slide is to install 40 emergency buttons at the front desk of the schools. We have that completed at this time. As you can see by the top pictures to the right, there's actually a little push button that's been put under the counter at every attendant's office. And when that button is pushed, 911 is called, and emergency responders come to the school right away. A second thing we've completed is Stratford High School rekeying. We rekeyed the entire school. It involves 686 lock sets. And within those lock sets, there's little pins for the keys. And we changed 16,976 pins, and it took us about 68 man-hours. That's been improved. We also improved student pickup and drop-off zones at 2 schools. That involved both sidewalks and awnings. And we're in the midst of replacing the exterior doors at Westview Elementary. Materials are here. We just need to get that work scheduled. A little tricky. When you take out the exterior door, you've got to secure the school for the night. So we have to work through some scheduling issues to get that done. Next slide. Another big chunk of the work is improving the exterior security lighting. We've done that at 11 schools. There's 2 more schools to go to make the full 11. The biggest brunt of that work is putting additional LED wall packs around the exterior of the school. When you have a lighted exterior, you have less risk of people trying to break into your school, and also the cameras work better when you can see their faces. We picked up some LED fixtures because if you're going to run that security lighting when it's most necessary, you want to also be energy conserved at the same time. We put up some security lighting on poles. We've also taken some existing poles and refocused the lighting so they're doing good near the cameras or dark areas. Then the last thing we did with the lighting is there's some LED canopy lights we added at some of the canopies, especially for student pickup and drop-off. They need to see where they're going. And here's an example of one we put at Berkeley Intermediate School. The biggest bulk of the work involves adding security layers to the front entrances of 20 schools. To avoid putting all our eggs in one basket, and in order to accomplish the work as soon as possible, we opted to group the projects into 5 groups so multiple architects could be working on the projects at the same time. As you can see by the comparison data up there, we're still trying like heck to get all these projects completed prior to the end of the summer. From what we learned in the first 4 groups, we were able to use that knowledge in obtaining a waiver from OSF to design the last 2 projects with our in-house architect. Next slide. We wanted to give you a peek behind the curtain and let you see what the process looks like in executing these projects. The steps are listed as follows. We define the scope, we hire an architect, we design. Once the design's ready, we review and approve it. We also review it with the principal, the security officer, and OSF. Then we put the project out for bid. It's awarded. You guys approve the award. Then we get to work. We start constructing it. We install the access control hardware. We do final acceptance. We're doing this 20 times for every unique school. Currently, Group 1 is under construction. We've approved that award, and that contractor is ordering material and waiting for it to come in. Group 2 and 3 are under bid right now, and Group 4 is up at OSF, and it was sent there Friday. It's under review. I'll talk about Group 5 in a minute. It never hurts to refresh ourselves as what the State Department of Education's Office of School Facilities require. I know this is a difficult slide to read, but I just kind of wanted to point out a couple things. That it's very clear that OSF requires that all plans and specs are received by them approved before we can bid a project. They also have to inspect all public school buildings before occupancy. When we look specifically at work that is constructed by a school district, once again they have requirements. We have to submit drawings or a scope of work. It has to have prior approval. We have to complete architectural and engineering services unless it's waived. And we also have to have third-party inspections. This next slide shows a sample of one of our architect's design. As you can see, the design is both signed and sealed by a professional architect. I have pulled out a sample of the drawings for St. Stephen Middle School and H.E. Bonner. Fortunately, their front entries are similar, so their designs might be similar. We try to be as consistent as we can, because that will help us with future maintenance and repair efforts. This next slide is for Westview Primary. Like I said, we were able to obtain a waiver from OSF. We had to fill out a form. Dr. Thompson had to sign it. We sent it up there, and they did approve a waiver. In this design, we have taken out a window and putting in a door. And this project will be done by our in-house workforce. Goose Creek Primary. This is what a completed project will look like. You can see the new silver storefront. Goose Creek Primary's main entrance door would be to the left of the photograph. You would walk in. There's a hallway to the left where the storefront is now that would lead to classrooms. There is also a hallway to the right that leads to classrooms. The same storefront was put on the mirrored image side. So what this does is force people to come in the front door, and then they have to go into the attendance office right there with that wooden door where it's open. They are not able to travel into the classroom wings without getting authorization or being buzzed in. Now we're going to go look at some projects that have been accomplished that are not security related. The first one was adding 4 portables at Whitesville Elementary School. This is one of those combination projects where we have our grounds crew prepare the site, because both those are up there on the left. A subcontractor moves the trailers into place. A structural engineer designs the foundations, which are installed by our carpenters. The carpenters then continue on in building the stairs, ramps, and installing the skirting. Additionally, they are tasked with repairing and replacing flooring, ceilings, siding, doors, windows, and roofs as they're needed. We have an HVAC contract in place where we order and buy our HVAC units, and then our craftsmen install the units and hook up the controls. Electricians rewire the electrical systems and update the fire alarm systems. Electricians also coordinate with the local electrical provider to hook up the power. We then use our concrete subcontract to replace sidewalks, and another subcontractor to provide and install the awnings. It is exhausting thinking about all these things our facility department schedules and coordinates to get these trailers in place each year. And yes, we're gearing up for another round of trailers this summer. And some of these trailers might have to contain restrooms, so that will add another element to the complexity of that work. This next project is one of my favorites. It's at Cane Point Elementary School Middle School. This project really can show a difference our skilled craftsmen can make for the students. Here's some before pictures of the student bathroom at Cane Point Elementary Middle School. This next slide shows all the work that was done in-house. We put in new plumbing fixtures, new partitions, new floor tile, new lighting, new ceiling, new exhaust fans. Next slide. We also put in new mirrors, new hand dryers, new sinks, new faucets, new wall tiles. We've completed 2 of the wings at King Point right now and are working on the 3rd one. There's also some student restrooms in the back of the gym that we'll be attacking next. I think you would agree with me. Our craftsmen did a wonderful job, and I believe the students will feel special to have beautifully renovated student bathrooms in which they can use. This next slide shows something that we are working with the IT department. They are putting in some mobile device charging stations, and each of those charging stations needs some good clean power. So our electricians are going around the district and installing new receptacles in which these charging stations can be added to. Some of those units actually store up to 20 devices, and they're all lockable, and at night all the devices can be charged so it's ready for the next school day. So far we've done 4 schools. Some of the other larger projects we've completed that I'd like to highlight. We've also done some boilers at 5 different schools. Some of the boilers were for hot water in the kitchen, and others were for the HVAC system. We've replaced 2 pumps at the Timberland High School sewer lift station. There's actually a force main from Timberland High School to St. Stephen's, and if those pumps weren't replaced, guess what? That school will be closed because we didn't pump it. All right, that sums up the capital improvement and renovation projects we wanted to show you tonight. But on another note, I thought I would go ahead and address a project you all thought about when driving to the school. You know all those HVAC units that are sitting on the roof. Although they are probably a very beautiful sight to James Thomas, not all of us have the great appreciation of HVAC equipment like he does. Just kidding, James. So yes, we have a project in the works. The status of this project, it's a bond-funded project under design. We plan to bid this work in the fall when roofing work is less expensive than the summer work, and the dollars will go farther. Many roof penetrations are needed for this project, so we really need to take our time and get a good design. We also need to line up some good inspection. This is the after picture. As you can see, we met and reviewed this preliminary design with the principal on May 19th. The design needs to be tweaked a little bit. She had a really good idea about putting College Park Middle School on the left-hand side and their mascot, the Squires, on the right-hand side. So we're tweaking that design. And like I said, we're hoping to get that out for bid in the fall time and get the work done as soon as we can. Questions?
All right, and before we open it up to questions and comments, I forgot to thank Ms. Dukes for hosting us tonight, my fellow member of the class of 1983 of Hanahan High School. I hope that picture met with your approval. If not, I'm sure I will hear about it from you. Look forward to it. Any questions or comments for Mrs. Myers regarding the capital improvements update as outlined in agenda item number 9?
I would just like to take a moment to recognize James Thomas with our maintenance department. He and his crew are responsible for a lot of these improvements. So I'd just like to give James, you have any folks with you tonight, but let's give you a round of applause.
Yeah. James is the man that keeps us cool. All right, Ms. Dover, did you have something? Oh, you good? All right, so moving on to then, Ms. Myers, you also have this evening in agenda item number 9, an item for action entitled Cross High School Renovation Phase 1 Guaranteed Maximum Price.
Thank you. What I'm going to do for this project, I'm going to turn it over to the project manager, who is Crystal Queen. As soon as she pulls up her slides, she'll be trading places.
Good evening, Chairman Murray,
Good
Dr.
evening.
Thompson, and members of the board. I am very excited about our presentation tonight and the opportunity to deliver a quality project across the community. I would like to start by introducing our members of our team. With Doug Ultra, Jared, architects, Mr. Sam Garrett, principal in charge, Ms. Margie Longshore, architect. Even though he could not be here tonight, I'd like to recognize the consulting architect, who is Mr. Spot Towell with Craig Dalton Davis. And then I'd like to introduce our contractor, Mr. Frisco, with Thompson Turner, the operations manager. So I'm going to turn it over to Margie so she can go through the presentation. Good evening.
Speak loud.
Speak into the microphone, right?
Get close.
Yeah. Gotta get really close.
Ice cream cone.
Thank you all very much for having us. We're very excited to have the opportunity to work on Cross High School and also be here and speak with you about the project and introduce you to the work we're doing. We've had great input from the school steering committee, the school administration, and the district staff that we've been working with. And we were very excited to have the opportunity to enhance the students' facilities at the school. And seeing the track team representation that you all had here tonight was inspiring, and it's a great reminder of why we're doing what we're doing. This is the current entry to Cross High School. Y'all are familiar with it. It's the front door to the school. And really, in our visits up there, we've been so impressed with the pride the school has in their facilities. It's very well maintained, and we're excited to work with a group that has that amount of pride in their community and in their school. As I said, we've got a great team. In addition to the school district and Thompson Turner, we are the architect of record. As Crystal mentioned, we're working with a consulting educational architect, Craig Dalton Davis. We have all of our engineering team is local to the Charleston area. RMF Engineering are our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineers. Stephen Whiteside is doing the civil and landscape design. ADC Engineering is handling structural design, and BRC Acoustics is our acoustical consultant. We've broken the project into 2 phases so that we can accomplish a portion of the work over the summer break. The first phase will include the athletics portion and renovations to the locker rooms. On the screen, we have the program for the athletics phase, which includes coaches' offices, training room, locker rooms, visitor locker rooms, uniform storage, laundry, and equipment storage. This phase of the work will be totally encompassed within existing square footage in the school. It's all renovation work. Total square footage of just over 4,000 square feet. In phase 2, we have 2 portions of the project to be accomplished during phase 2. These will be started in the fall, tentatively scheduled for the fall after phase 1 is complete. Media center renovations include a reading room, office and workrooms, conference rooms, storage rooms, and public toilets. Approximately 2,500 square feet of renovated space. The auditorium is also completely renovation work. We're taking the existing media center and auditorium, combining them to create a larger auditorium that can also be used for community functions and then house school-wide activities. There will be a large seating area, stage, media production room, dressing rooms, prop construction, and storage for 9,000 square feet of renovated space. As I mentioned, Cross High School exhibits obvious pride in their school building and facilities. The main goal of this renovation is to bring these spaces up to the same level as much of the rest of the school. On the screen, we have the opportunities and challenges and the overall goals for the Phase 1 locker room renovation work. Functionally, the existing locker rooms required that the visitors' basketball teams pass through the home team locker rooms to go to the visitor locker rooms. With renovation work that we're doing, we're separating those entrances so that the home and visitor teams don't have to cross paths at halftime or after the game. We are providing an adequate number of lockers in all the locker rooms, along with benches and a team meeting area in each locker room. We're reconfiguring the coaches' offices to have better visual control of the locker rooms. Finished selections have been made to reinforce the school logos, reinforce the school colors, and then we're adding logos into the main entry of the home locker rooms. We are providing an adequately sized training room with storage cabinets and an ice maker. The storage rooms and the training room will be directly accessible from the gym, whereas now you enter the locker rooms and then go into the training rooms. And then we are replacing plumbing and mechanical equipment to provide higher energy efficiency, new and more healthy equipment. On the screen, you can see the plans of the school. This is the overall plan of the school. The main entrance is along the bottom side of the page. The blue highlighted area shows the locker rooms and the Phase 1 work. The yellow highlighted areas are the auditorium in the center and the media center on the right. Those would be the Phase 2. This is the demolition plan for the locker room. The heavier lines are solid, and those are the walls to be kept. If you can see the dashed lines, they're a little faint with the light on the screen, but those show the walls to be removed. In doing the field work, we tried to make a concerted effort to retain load-bearing walls and walls that are structural, so that we're not having to go back and replace a lot of structure in the space. This is the new plan of the locker rooms. The gym is toward the bottom of the page. Starting on the left, you can see separate entrances to the girls' visitors' locker room, which is in the top left. The girls' home team locker room is more to the center left. Boys' home team locker room is more center right, and the boys' visitors' locker room is to the far right. The boys' visitors' locker room has an entrance off of the main corridor now, so that they can exit the gym and then go up to the locker room. Along the bottom, directly adjacent to the gym, are the storage rooms, laundry, and the training room, so that students or coaches can go directly into those spaces without having to go into the locker rooms. These are a few pictures of the existing conditions. For the space to be the age it is, it's not in horrible shape, but it is, we've got the opportunity to bring it up to better reflect and provide a better function for the students in the school. This is a rendering of the proposed locker room. This is a view of the boys' locker room. We are bringing the school colors into the locker selection. This shows the meeting space in the center of the room where the coach can meet with the team at halftime with a marker board on the far wall and providing benches for their use. This is the proposed view of the media center, which will be in Phase 2, an open reading room, upgrades to reflect current technology, and then looking at some wall graphics to further reinforce literature or media center type messages that are important to this course of learning. And then this is a proposed view of the auditorium. You can see a large open space in front of the seating, and the seating, we're looking at the practical seating to be able to open up the floor space and accommodate larger groups in a more multi-purpose setting. The stage is on the far left and will be painted out black, so it'll be multi-function for performances and groups. And I'll turn it over to the contractor at this point.
first phase here is the locker room area. Our number one concern for this phase, and both phases, existing campus, is safety. Locker room is primarily going to be done during the summer. We all know high schools really never shut down in the summer. There's always some activity going on. Fortunately for this phase, it is in the back of the school, on the back corner of the school. We're going to be able to access the locker room from the back. So we've got good egress for our work. And our goal is to have all this work done before students come back. We're going to be very close on that. If not, certainly students will be first and foremost in what we're doing to finish up the work. We will have additional staff on site. Again, we want to make sure we're taking every precaution to keep the staff safe, and keep the students safe. Much like we described a few weeks ago when Ms. Creek is going to have radio contact with the school. Certainly on the second two phases, second phase, that will happen during school. We want the staff to be able to call us at any time. Same thing, we want to be able to call them any time if we need to communicate. School participation, again, as Margie described, up to this point, the staff has been very involved in the design, pushing the staff in every meeting, very engaged in what we're doing, very interested in what we're doing. So it's been a big part of what we've done so far. Continue to be a big part of what we're doing in construction. We want them at every meeting, give them their time, we want them to know what we're doing each and every day. We will badge all our personnel. Typically what we do is we have a sticker on their hard hat. Once they're on site, we go to a specific orientation for that project, for that site. We get a sticker on their hat. The staff knows if they see a contractor not have that sticker, they need to raise their hand and point that out. Again, very specific orientation decided for any contractor to go for. Even though this is a relatively small project, doesn't touch that many trades, we did reach out in a lot of areas looking for subcontractors and vendors. Usually all the local papers, all the Charleston area papers, Columbia area papers. We use SCIBO, which is the state's location for advertising all state projects, Association of General Contractors. And I apologize for the acronyms there. In our database, we've got a large database of subcontractors that we use and continue to use. And then our consultant, Construction Dynamics, also has a large database that we reach out. Again, very focused on the Tri-County market, trying to get as many local contractors as we can. Again, for as few trades as we have here, we're pretty pleased with the participation we've got. Local contractors and minority contractors, just by coincidence, happen to be the same percentage, about 17% for Tri-County subcontractors and the same percentage for women contractors. Again, that's quite a few of the trades since there's not a lot of trades involved. This was the flyer we did. Again, this was sent out publicly and run publicly, posted at the school, a number of different places. We had a public walkthrough and actually had really good participation. A lot of people don't know we're across this, so it was interesting to see how much good participation that we did have. Again, everybody that walked the school had the same impression that Mark did. It's a really nice school. I'm very impressed with the students and how clean the school was and how well it was maintained. Here's just a snapshot of our schedule. Again, we hope to start the day after the kids leave. We hope to be ready, working hard on the 3rd, which is a Tuesday. It's going to take several weeks to do the demolition. In that locker room, as Martha showed, a lot of the walls come out. The vast majority of the floors come out. Make room for new plumbing. Again, that's going to take several weeks. And then our new work will start back. Again, you see, we're going to run right up until the deadline there. But quite a bit of work to do in a small space, but it will be a very busy summer.
Thank you, Marcy, and thank you, Chris, for
Thank you very much. We have an item for action to consider. Do I have a motion and a second regarding the administration's recommendation for cross-high renovation Phase 1's guaranteed maximum price? Mrs. Moore.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve Thompson Turner construction guaranteed maximum price of $941,951 for the construction of the Cross High School renovation project, Phase 1, and the overall project cost of $1,153,193.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mrs. Schwabe. Ms. Moore has made a motion to accept the administration's recommendation. I will repeat that motion for the record following our discussion question session, and that motion has been seconded by Ms. Schwabe. Do we have any questions or comments for the administration regarding this motion? Dr. Etheridge?
The 17% tri-county subcontractors, isn't that considerably lower than what we anticipated? Do you have a reason why that's lower?
It is slightly lower. I don't remember the exact number we had on Blue Street, but again, we have a fairly limited number of trades. All the drywall, a lot of the demo, some of the key trades are local, but again, it is, we reached out to a lot that wasn't a big enough project for a lot of the bigger contractors to get work in.
On the walkthrough, did I read that right? The walkthrough was 1 day, and the bid date was the next day? 3 days. 3 days?
3 days. I think the walkthrough was on Monday and it was.
Okay. Is that typical? Is that adequate time?
It was adequate. Most of them were already looking at it anyway, but so it gave them a chance. We sent out the invitation approximately 2 weeks before that, so they had had it for 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Once they had the chance to walk through. So it was their opportunity to put their eyes on it. Since it was a renovation, we don't always do that. Since it was a renovation, we wanted the agency to see it.
I'd like to make 2 comments to that too, Dr. Etheridge. We pushed to get Phase 1 started so we could start this project in the summertime and not wait till the following summer to do this project. So we'll have an opportunity to get more local contractors on Phase 2 and 3.
All right, do we have any more questions or comments? Mr. Cooper?
Yeah, I've got a question, and kind of pertains to the safety. If I remember correctly, when we started doing some of the interviews on this, there was a lot of concerns about lay down yards and lay down spaces and how to create activities and paths for students, because we're hitting very high impact areas. Have those all been worked out for how you're going to migrate from one phase through Phase 3, or have we just figured it out for Phase 1?
Yes, we have already worked through that. We have selected an area at the back of the school that will be out of student access. It will be fenced and protected, so students will not have access to that location. So again, keeping everything at the back of the house keeps the students away from that, and we'll have a trailer on site, and it will be secured and down the block.
Follow up to that, the contractor entrance and how they're going to get back there and around the buildings in the morning or whatever they're going to do. In the summer, I don't think there'll be a problem, but Phase 2 and Phase 3 is more my concerns, I guess.
Based on the location of the project, we are at the very back of the school. The access drive around the bus loop, which is a separate drive, so they have their own.
Very good. Thank you.
Or does that conclude your comments, Mr. Cooper? Questions? Any other questions or comments regarding the cross-high guaranteed maximum price motion? Hearing none, seeing none, it's difficult not sitting at our normal table, but we'll call the question. A motion was made by Ms. Moore to approve Thompson Turner Construction's guaranteed maximum price of $941,951 for the construction of the Cross High School renovation project, Phase 1, and the overall project cost of $1,153,193. Ms. Moore's motion was seconded by Ms. Schwabe. We'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. The motion carries unanimously. The Cross High renovation Phase 1 guaranteed maximum price has been approved. Thank you. Now moving on to agenda item number 10, Mr. Thomas, Financial Services. Tonight you bring us an item for information entitled Fiscal Year 2014-2015 Budget Update. The floor is yours, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Thompson. If you've not read the book Tale of Two Cities, I think this year's budget seems to be along those lines of that book related to the state and all the school districts in the state of South Carolina on many accounts. Important dates have been adjusted as we've gone through this process related to next year's budget. We hope the last day of session will be June 5th, and we'll have more information between now and June 10th related to updated state versions of next year's budget. We're still on House Ways and Means. Usually at this point in time, we're like House and Senate versions. We don't even have those yet, so very late in discussion and information related from the state. We have had, again, workshops with the school board, and again tonight, and then I've been out in these various schools doing just school community meetings, and they've all been very positive, and appreciate the opportunity to be going out to those schools, and appreciate their hospitality related to those meetings. Again, this is the House Ways and Means version. Remember, there was a transference of some state funds from BIA going back to base student costs and some wages. And so you'll see a major loss versus a major increase in EFA because of that structure. And that will negatively actually impact the budget next year, mainly in class size reduction and gift and talented and some other state funds that we will get corrected by about $4.3 billion versus the new revenue. So we're still upside down in that category. Base student costs still $21.20. I don't expect that to change. So it's only $19 more per student than last year, and we should be at $27.42. These are some particular revenue points that we've been talking about in this year's budget. Most significantly, increase in Act 388, which is about $771,000 because of population and CPI growth. We can talk about Act 388 millage increase of about 3.6% or about 5.2 mils, depending on where we're at with reassessment. Reassessment, I should have changed that slide. We do have numbers now, and that's in the PowerPoint related to real property. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Increase in the base student cost of over $19, but again, the increase in weighting changes. And then the estimated growth of 659 students for about $1.3 million because of those students coming into the system. This might be a little hard to see, but you have in your PowerPoint that. You can see all the different tax districts on the left, the description, 2014 assessments and 2013 assessments. Keep in mind this is 4% and 6% combined assessments. So you can see about a 6.2% growth in the total numbers. I have been informed by the county assessor that there's been over last 4 or 5 years, or last 3 or 4 assessments, the growth and for the split between 4 and 6% has been mostly 50-50. We're seeing more of the 6% versus 4%. I expect that to change with some of the growth of loans over the next 5, 6 years, 10 years. But this 6.2% overall is a good number related to our ability to manage our debt service and those kinds of things. We take this, work with conservative growth in the area, but these are a little bit better numbers than I thought I would see related to what I was hearing from the county assessor prior to getting this information. You can see the other categories from vehicles to aircraft. According the assessor does not do these categories, but the county auditor does, and she was recommending some level of depreciation between about 7 to 10%, so I just took 10%. Knowing that that might not really materialize, but I'm using these numbers and trying to figure out what the assessment may have an impact on our school system related to bills. So you can see those numbers as well. The actual growth, new growth from 13 to 14 was about almost $14 million. So this 11 million is actually being offset by that number. And you can see at the bottom of the difference between 4 and 6% of 283 or 4% is 295 million of 6% property. Again, expenditure unknowns, health insurance, we kind of talked through that a little bit, cost of living, which will not happen. Sequestration, we continue to get information related from special education, specifically related to cuts, not maybe IPPA, but some other funds that she's had access to that will impact the general fund. This slide has been updated from the last time you saw this. The numbers have gone from 2.9 to 4.5 million. This is the slide related to Act 388 and what we're not getting from having access to 4% property in our reimbursement. So this number is growing as we predicted in the past. So if we had this revenue through some avenue, this budget would be a whole lot different and figuring out the bottom line. Growth numbers and enrollment through 2016. This is a few changes from the last presentation where we've gone through and figured out some reductions in these priorities. Reductions maybe not doing them, but doing them some other way. So school health and safety, even though very important part of our priorities. We are addressing a lot of those needs for referendum and other avenues of capital improvements. So these are just some staffing kinds of needs that we need to address. I think there was social workers on the last presentation, which are being funded in another way. We've reduced this number from the prior presentation, and mostly in the fifth day planning area, and the 1 to 3% increase in support staff, figuring out 3% incremental funding in all classified classroom aides and other support staff. Salary schedules, staff is still 4.2 million. Keeps asking me if this number should be less, it keeps coming out and be the same. But we have we're able to reduce the technology salary study. We met with Diane related to the study and how she wants to implement that. That number was 275,000 last time. It's now 68,000. It also includes some support for certification classes and that sort of thing, as well as increases for staff. So we're able to reduce that number. Drivers, this revenue expenditures, drivers education, we're just continuing that from prior board actions. Middle school, college textbooks, I think was approved in 14-15 already. And then the other being, we continue to want to support the supply budget, not reducing the 25% because of the challenges that give schools to support the classroom supplies. Morgan and I are working with some of the school paper and those kinds of things this year, trying to get them what they need for their classrooms. These are the old priorities, 8.5 million. These are the new priorities, up to 6, or reduction on 850,000. And this is a new slide from before. A little bit hard to read, but taking last year's numbers, keep in mind that we did use $2.2 million of fund balance to balance the budget. We're working on trying to figure out if we'll actually meet that target or not meet that monitor the state website, additional state information. Cash flow for 1450 for the tax anticipation note. I'm working on that now, and I present that to the bond attorneys to approve. It'll be about the same as last year, mainly because it's just cash flow, money, even negative related to not having a balance, just cash flow. Public hearing will be on June 24th. We usually do that about 5:30 that day, and then go on to the board meeting that night. We'll advertise in the public hearing, but unfortunately I don't have to do that before the June 10th board meeting. So with your consensus, I'll probably do something similar that we did last year with a range of millage and a range of expenditures, which gives you the option to do something or not do something, and we vote on that on June 24th. So that's kind of where we're at with next year's budget related to information about today, which again is still very little. Questions?
All right, do we have any questions or comments from Mr. Thomas regarding tonight's budget update? Mr. Cooper?
I guess I'd like to make a comment that you've all heard me make many times before, but we need voters to vote, and to vote for people that are for public education. Since Act 388 has gone into effect, everybody, that was really nice. There was a break on primary residence. But what that does is put the operating burden on your 6% property, which is primarily your individual local business people, the local entrepreneurs, and rental and second homes. However, since Act 388, our legislature has not fully funded base student cost, thus putting the pressure back on the school boards. Every local school board has the same pressures. The only way they can make up those monies is to put a further burden already on top of those 6% properties. That's the only place we can get operating millage. We can get their debt service millage off of 4% properties. So therein, with all the growth you see in Berkeley County and the expansion that you see and the referendum that we need to get these schools in the county, and the people of this county have supported that wholeheartedly, all of those homes that are being built and those people coming here aren't paying one dime to operate those schools. And that is where the dysfunction comes in to how our state legislature is not supporting public education. They're driving it right back to the taxpayers. They're putting all the burden in Berkeley County out on those 6% properties. So you need to be aware how impacted this is, because we're not getting the Boeings, we're not getting a lot of those companies, we're getting the people that work there and their children. And we're having to build schools and fund those, but we're going to struggle putting quality teachers, quality administrators, and quality programs continually into those for the benefit of our kids. So this isn't just a numbers game that we have to go through and can we shuffle the P around. It's starting in Columbia, and they need to hear your voices, especially coming up here real soon.
Could not agree anymore, Mr. Cooper. Well stated. Any other questions or comments?
I'd like to make
Dr. Thompson?
one comment for clarification to our board members. And we talked about backpacking at our last meeting, and that's where you increase one account that you're funded from the state, but you cut another account. And one of the biggest challenges we're facing with this year's budget, Mr. Thomas showed that we are getting $5.5 million additional dollars from the state. However, they've cut $3.5 million from our at-risk funding. So, and he also showed you $4.2 million for a step increase for our employees. So if you balance the two, you can see that we're out of balance, and that's the main reason that we're having to shift 80 teacher salaries from at-risk funding to the general fund, because that at-risk account was cut by more than $3 million.
All right. Hearing no more questions or comments, or any more questions and comments, thank you, Mr. Thomas, for your time. We appreciate the budget update. Yes, he'll get through quickly. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. We appreciate your time. And members of the board, we will be obviously discussing budgets right up until the passage of our budget. I believe it's on June 24th or 24th. All right, thank you. Now up to agenda item number 11, instruction and accountability. Dr. O'Gorman has an item for action this evening entitled, The First Reading of Textbook Adoptions for 8th Grade History, World Geography for grades 9 through 12, Writing Preparation for AP courses, and CTE textbooks for multiple courses. Mr. Franchini, Dr. O'Gorman. I've seen Mr. Franchini so often I called you by the wrong name. Dr. O'Gorman, the podium's yours.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Thompson. As you have mentioned, we have before you a first reading for the 8th grade history textbook, 9 to 12 world geography textbook, the writing preparation AP course textbook, and a slew of CTE textbooks that are attached page there. These are all selected through board policy. We'd like to thank all the teachers who participated and casted their votes and participated in this selection. So I'm just submitting thanks to you as is. I will not read it as a publisher. Thank you with that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. O'Gorman. Do I have a motion regarding agenda item number 11?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the agenda item 11, first reading of textbook adoptions as submitted by the administration.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper has made a motion, which has been seconded by Mr. Obie, to accept the recommendation of the administration. Do we have any questions or comments for Dr. O'Gorman regarding the agenda item 11, item for action? Mr. Cooper.
Just for clarification, I'm going to assume these are in the boardroom for public
We will
review?
have them on display for you. Yes. We didn't call them tonight.
Right, but
We'll have them in the board. Yes, sir.
this week starting.
Yes, sir.
All right, so if anybody wants to see it.
Tomorrow.
All right. Looking forward to seeing how heavy they are, Mr. Cooper?
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions or comments regarding agenda item number 11? Hearing no questions, we will call the motion. A motion was made by Mr. Cooper. That motion was seconded by Mr. Obie to approve agenda item 11, first reading of textbook adoptions as submitted by the administration. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. The motion carries unanimously. Dr. O'Gorman, your first reading has been approved. Thank you. Next up is agenda item number 12, the superintendent's report. Dr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the board, I have one announcement. I did share with each of you the graduation schedule that begins tomorrow night, so please, that is our invitation for you to attend the graduation ceremonies if your schedule permits. We'd love to see you there. Mr. Chair, I have two items for action tonight. First, I'd like to give a little background and then make a recommendation. First item for action is in regards to the Berkeley Middle College. Just to recap to our board members, on February the 4th, the administration recommended that the board change the status of the middle college from a standalone school to a magnet school. In short, count the students in the data of the sending or home school. There are very serious concerns that have been raised due to this recommendation, mainly in regards to the impact on class rank of the home schools. Although reversing the decision could negatively impact the graduation rates of our high schools, I would rather impact the institutions than the individual students. So tonight, it is the recommendation of the district administration that the Board of Education reverse the February 4th board agenda item that turned the Berkeley County Middle College into a magnet program and not a standalone school. To be clear, I'm asking for the board to return the status of the middle college to an independent high school.
But you've heard the administration's recommendation for agenda item 12A referring to the Berkeley Middle College. Do I have a motion and a second regarding this administrative recommendation?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the administration's recommendation to return the Berkeley Middle College to a standalone school.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Lee has made a motion. That motion has been seconded by Mr. Cooper. I will restate that motion for the record following discussion. Do we have any questions or comments regarding the motion on the table? Hearing none? Seeing none? Well, thank you. All right. Hearing no questions or comments or discussion, we will call the question. A motion has been made by Ms. Lee. That motion was seconded by Mr. Cooper to approve the administration's recommendation to return the Berkeley County Middle College to a standalone school. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. The motion carries unanimously. The administration's recommendation has been approved. Agenda item 12B.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The second item for action is the instructional calendar. And first, I'd like to applaud our board for approving inclement weather makeup days in a very timely manner that allowed our parents to make summer arrangements and travel plans as soon as possible. Unfortunately, when it comes to the instructional calendar, it reminds me of the saying, no good deed goes unpunished. The State Department of Education will not allow us to convert 2 half-days into one and count as makeup days, even though we are meeting the seat time requirements. Our neighboring district is in a similar situation and just recently added 2 days to their instructional calendar. Therefore, we need to add 1 half-day for students on June 3rd to meet the 180-day requirement as outlined by the South Carolina Department of Education. Second, House Bill 5253 allows for the Berkeley County School District's governing authority to waive the requirement that schools make up full days missed due to inclement weather for 5 or fewer missed days due to inclement weather during the 2013-2014 school year, regardless of whether the district has exhausted all statutorily required makeup days remaining on the 2013-2014 school calendar. House Bill 5253 has passed both the House and Senate, still needs to be ratified by the Senate, and will need the governor's signature. Our local delegates are hopeful this will take place tomorrow morning. So with that being said, it is the recommendation of the administration that the last day for students become Friday, May 30th, pending the passing of House Bill 5253. If the bill does not become law prior to June 2nd, the Berkeley County School District will conduct half-days for students on June 2nd and 3rd.
All right, prior to discussion, do I have a motion and a second regarding agenda item 12B and the administration recommendation just provided?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the administration's recommendation that the last day for students become Friday, May 30th, pending the passing of House Bill 5253. If the bill does not become law prior to June 2nd, the Berkeley County School District will conduct half-days for students on June 2nd and 3rd.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Etheridge. Ms. Lee has made a motion. That motion has been seconded by Dr. Etheridge to accept the administration's recommendation. Prior to the vote, I will reread the motion for the record. Do we have any questions or comments regarding the motion on the table? Mr. Cooper.
I guess I'm a bit perplexed that after children have graduated, they're going to be required to come back to school for 2 half-days, and then we're going to have to run buses and hire cafeteria workers and endure all that cost. Have we been able to articulate to the legislature what that additional cost with no benefit to the children is going to be? Matter of fact, it's a deficit that is going to impact our budgeting process for this year.
Yes, sir. Our local delegation has been very supportive of House Bill 5253 and also being supportive of trying to wrap this up today, and hopefully we'll get those 2 signatures that are missing tomorrow morning.
Do we know what the costs are if they don't?
We're probably in the neighborhood of $165,000, $170,000 a day.
Does that conclude your comments, Mr. Cooper?
Yep.
All right, Ms. Lee?
Is there anything that we can do to encourage these signatures that we need?
You know, you always have the right to email or call your legislatures, but at this point, the only signature that's required is the President Pro Tempore of the Senate, Senator Corson, and then the governor's signature. We've been told that everything is in place to get those signatures very soon, but we will not rest until we get them. Dorchester 2 and Spartanburg County are also part of this legislation, so their delegation has been working been very active to try to get this pushed through. So hopefully we're going to get it done tomorrow. But there's no guarantees until we have those 2 signatures.
Ms. Lee, does that conclude your comments?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do we have any other comments or questions regarding the motion on the table?
I would like
Dr.
to
Thompson?
make one comment. If May 30th does become our last day of school, those schools that operate summer day camps, we will ask them to open on Monday and Tuesday for a full day schedule for our parents.
All right. Thank you. So it appears we're in a holding pattern. So let's go ahead and call the question. Ms. Lee has made a motion. That motion reads as follows: to approve the administration's recommendation that the last day for students become Friday, May 30th, pending the passing of House Bill 5253. If the bill does not become law prior to June 2nd, the Berkeley County School District will conduct half-days for students on June 2nd and June 3rd. That motion was seconded by Dr. Etheridge. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Mr. Cooper, was that you, sir?
That's
All right,
me.
so we've got a 7-1 vote with Mr. Cooper dissenting. Did I get that correct, board members? All right, the motion passes. The administration's recommendation for agenda item 12B has been passed on a 7-1 vote. Now it is time to move on to agenda item 13 for executive session. Tonight's executive session will focus on student attendance appeals, a student expulsion appeal, personnel considerations, contractual matters, and a legal briefing. Do I have a motion and a second to move into executive session? Thank you, Ms. Moore. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Schwabe. All those in favor of moving into executive session, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. We move into executive session.